I first heard this song from Rick Von Schmidt. He's a folk singer in the green fields of Harvard University. Baby, let me follow you down. Baby, let me follow you down. Well, I would do anything in this God Almighty world if you just let me follow you down. Hey, I bet you're wondering what the Bob Dylan CD is about. I'm sure you haven't the slightest inkling. Well, that's the way it is, you know. Not everybody has the privilege of having enough spare time to develop a science of Dylanology and translate the songs. It took me ages to figure out that Dylan was a neo-Confederate and right-winger. Was. He's back to his, well, he was never really a decent human being, but he's trying now, but it's a stretch. Anyway, let's take a look at that new CD, Rough Trade in Rowdy. It's pretty interesting, actually. And, you know, a lot of it difficult to translate, but some of it isn't. We'll start with Black Rider. Now, the thing with Black Rider, the thing that got me with Black Rider is this verse 3. Black Rider, all dressed in black. Okay? In Paint My Masterpiece, Dylan says, the priest wore black on the seventh day and sat stone-faced while the building burned. I waited for you on the running board when the springtime turned slowly into autumn. Yeah, well, you know, I didn't start the fire in front of Dylan's house during the birthday party. It was a FBI informant who became such after he witnessed his friends being murdered in Vietnam or shot down or whatever. And Bob McLean was his name, actually. And when he came back, he decided to infiltrate the anti-war movement, primarily VVAW. So the priest wore black on the seventh day. The radical priest come to get you released. He was all on the cover of Newsweek. Newsweek did a full-page story on me. So the priest wore black. On the seventh day, on Sunday, was when we had the birthday party, and sat stone-faced while the building burned. I waited for you on a running board like a gangster, you know, and they go as the springtime turned slowly into autumn. He got off his bike and he attacked me, man. He like, wow, you know, I'm still like suffering brain damage from that attack. But, you know, I've managed to control it to some degree. Anyway, so that, you know, he regals in that, you know, in beating up a poor, innocent, or guilty hippie like me. I shouldn't have messed with his wife. I promised I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go through the garbage anymore. And when the minute Sarah came out, I should have got the crew and Garcelon and the Italian photographer from AP and said, let's get out of here. But instead, I disrespected Sarah. And I said, hey, she's yelling at me, screaming at me. And I told her, you know, if the garbage means so much to you, why don't you not throw it out? Which was basically disrespectful. And Dylan had warned me that I ever messed with his wife, he would beat me up because he didn't. She used to beat him up regularly because she was the daughter of a gangster uh, who owned a junkyard and somehow got into a beef with the mob or turned snitch. I don't know what happened, but somebody came in and aired him out in his own junkyard. And, I don't see junkyard as a great target of, for a armed robbery. I don't think there's going to be much money in there. Anyway, he keeps it up during Music Aid. He says some people were harder to pin down than others. He pinned me down on the sidewalk, and he started to bang my head against the pavement, which is no fun for me. Anyway, he says, Black Rider, all dressed in black. Okay, remember, priests wore black on the seventh day. I'm walking away. You try to make me look back. He's walking away from the past. I'm making him look back on that incident. My heart is at rest. I'd like to keep it that way. He no longer wants to, take me on a ride. Like he's always telling me, hey, Al, let's go for a ride, man, in my car. I says, well, where do you want to go, man? He says, let's go down to the docks. I says, man, you mean like the East River? Or he says, yeah, come on, man. Anyway, my heart is at rest. I'd like to keep it that way. I don't want to fight. That refers back to that fight that we had. Or it was actually, I didn't really fight back because I felt guilty about what I'd done. My heart is at rest. I want to keep it that way. I don't want to fight, at least not today. Go home to your wife, who was Ann Duncan at the time. Stop visiting mine. Stop bugging Sarah. One of these days, I'll forget to be kind. One of these days, I'll have you whacked. But he wouldn't do that. He told me that if he put a contract out on me, he'd end up paying the person who did it blackmail for the rest of his life. So he took that off the menu there. Anyway, so that told me that I was Black Rider. And then we're going to jump back to voice one, as we say in Brooklyn. Voice. Black Rider, you've been living too hard. Been up all night. Have to stay on your guard. The path that you're walking, too narrow to walk. Every step of the way, another stumbling block. The road that you're on, same road that you know, just not the same as it was a minute ago. He has insight into the whole drug world and what it's like to get popped. Okay? Now, what do the words hard, guard, and block signify? Can anybody figure it out there? No. I'll tell you right off the bat. Hard, doing hard time. Guard, correction officer. Block, cell block. So, Black Rider, you've been living too hard. Been up all night, been dealing all night. You have to stay on your guard. You have to keep an eye out for rips and cops. The path that you're walking, too narrow to walk. Okay, that's like, you know how the cell blocks are, where, there's a whole eating area and common area in the bottom, and then there's cell blocks going around like this at MDC. The road that you're on, the road that you know, just not the same as it was a minute ago. Brilliant. That means once you get popped, everything fucking changes. From eating at Lutece, from living on Central Park South, the next thing you know, you're in a cell. you're in a cell. I wasn't even a cell. It started out as a dormitory, which was, believe me, it's much worse than a cell. It's much better to have your own, to be in a cell with your cellmate. My cellmate was an okay dude. His name was Soto. He was a Dominican drug dealer, and he was one of my students when I gave the other Dominican drug dealers lectures on Sensimilla and, how it was much more effective in getting you high than, pot with seeds and twigs in it. So, the road that you're on, the same road that you know, just not the same as a minute ago. Things change like that. You get popped, you're in a different world. You're in a world of death and a world of shit. Believe me. But, as far as I'm concerned, I had a better time at MDC in Brooklyn than I did at Camp Maple Lake, which was an Orthodox Jewish summer camp where Avi Dershowitz was my camp counselor. You know Avi Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz, okay? And, my parents came up there for visiting day, and they asked him, how's my son doing? And he said, oh, he's a very nice kid. Which just simply wasn't true. I was up to all kinds of no good there. And had I been a psychopath, I would have burned the fucking place down because I didn't like having to go to prayers 3 times a day, praying to a God that really doesn't exist. So, that was the story on those 2 verses. Now, Black Rider, you've seen it all. You've seen the great world, and you've seen the small. You fell into the fire, and you're eating the flame. Better seal your lips if you want to stay in the game. Be reasonable, mister. Be honest, be fair. Let all of your earthly thoughts be a prayer. Okay, Black Rider, you've seen the great world, and you've seen the small. Luxembourg was the country I decided to open a bank account after I was forced to leave the United States due to the fact that the feds thought I was using money from pot dealing to put out contracts on Nazi war criminals living in the United States, which wasn't true because you don't have to pay anyone to kill these people. You just have to point them in the right direction. And they stole my friend Mordecai's book where he had all the addresses down, and they went off on their own and did what they had to do. So I had to go to Israel and get, Israeli citizenship. So I took my girlfriend there, Bunny, along, and my 2 dogs, Mordecai and Helga, 2 Dobermans. And I lived in Israel until, Mordecai was able to work out a deal with the feds. If he testified against LaRouche, they would change my charges to civil charges, which they did. And I just paid a tremendous fine, and I didn't have to do the 18 months, which is the general sentence for income tax evasion. So you've been to the great world, and you've seen the small. Fell in the fire, you're eating the flame. Eating, to absorb the cost or expense of. You can eat your loss with the remaining money to other investments. The Fed seized like 1.2 million, but by the time they got around to actually getting it, it went up to 1.5 with interest and everything. Better seal up your lips if you want to stay in the game. If you want to continue to be a pot dealer after you get out of prison. I only got a year and a day, thank God, because the U.S. attorney, Charles McKenna, the judge was about to send me away for 5 years, and he got up and said, Your Honor, 10 years or 20 years of illegal activity doesn't make Mr. Weberman a bad guy. In fact, he's one of the people that make America great. The judge going, you know, and he says, calls for an adjournment. And I ended up getting a year and a day, which I could handle. 5 years, your life is ruined. So, better seal up your lips if you want to stay in the game. Be reasonable, mister. Be honest and fair. Don't rat out your friends, which I didn't have to do. The guy that ratted me down already did it for me. Let all of your earthly thoughts be a prayer. Prayer, law, a request contained in a petition to a court for relief by the petitioner. So those are two verses that I've been able to decipher. The rest of them, I don't understand. Black Rider, tell me when, tell me how. If there was ever a time, then let it be now. Let me go through, open the door. My soul is distressed, my mind is at war. Don't hug me, don't flatter me, don't turn on the charm. I'll take a sword and hack off your arm. It sounds like he's challenging me to a duel, you know? Like, you know, cream pies at 20 paces or something. You know, that's more my forte. But I don't, you know, or he wants to see me again, which is totally impossible. You know, so I dismissed that out of hand. Then he goes on, Black Rider, hold it right there. Forget it if you think that that's the case. You know, the size of your cock will get you nowhere. Wait a cotton picking second. Let me see something here. I don't know. You know. But, you know, Lenny Bruce would say that a black person's cock is like a baby's fist or something, you know. I don't know, you have to look at the, listen to the records again. So, this, I don't know what the size of my cock, the size of my cock-a-doodle-doo, crowing, I don't know. I'll suffer in silence, I'll not make a sound. You know, maybe I'll take the high moral ground. Maybe he'll, you know, give up all of this neo-Confederate stuff. The answer's blowing in the wind. The answer is to lynch blacks. On and on, you know. Please crawl out your window. I want you to the whites. His praise of David Duke and Chronicles. There's a whole lot of stuff. It's too lengthy for me to get into now. But believe me, he was a neo-Confederate. And that, you know, I was looking for leftist meaning. That's what I started this whole crazy trip out for, to find Dylan's message to humanity. But anyway, any event, maybe I'll take the high moral ground. Maybe he'll, you know, go back to being a decent human being. Which some of the songs there indicate that that's perhaps just what happened. Some enchanted evening, I'll sing you a song. Black Rider, you've been on the job too long. I don't know what job that is. You know, trying to study his poetry, I assume. But, you know, you never know. So, that's one song. That's one song there that I was able to translate. Of course, nobody's going to believe it. So I'm used to it already, you know.